Imagine two people. One person wins $100,000 today. The other gets just $100. Who do you think is more likely to become a millionaire? Most people immediately pick the first person. After all, how can someone possibly become rich starting with only $100? But here's the strange thing. In real life, the second person often has a better chance. Not because they're smarter, not because they earn more money, but because they understand something that most people never learn. A simple idea that quietly turns ordinary people into millionaires. And once you see it, you'll never look at money the same way again. Because the truth is, becoming a millionaire is usually not about finding a lucky investment, launching the next big company, or making six figures overnight. It's about understanding how small amounts of money behave over long periods of time. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. How someone can start with just $100 and potentially retire a millionaire. Not through magic, not through gambling, but through one of the most powerful forces in finance. And surprisingly, the hardest part has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with psychology. Let's start with the biggest myth. Most people believe wealth is built through big actions, a huge salary, a lucky break, a winning stock, a sudden opportunity. Our brains are naturally attracted to dramatic stories. We love hearing about the entrepreneur who sold a company for millions, the investor who picked the perfect stock, the celebrity who became rich overnight. But those stories are rare. The problem is that they make ordinary wealth building seem boring. And when something feels boring, people ignore it. Imagine a tiny snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it barely changes. It moves slowly. It looks insignificant. You could watch it for several minutes and think nothing is happening. But as it keeps rolling, it collects more snow. Then more. Then even more. Eventually, that tiny snowball becomes enormous. Money works the same way. The challenge is that most people quit before the snowball gets big. Let's see what this looks like in practice. Imagine you're 25 years old. You invest just $100, not $1,000, not $10,000, just $100. Now, imagine that instead of spending money on things you don't really need, you continue investing small amounts regularly. Maybe it's $100 per month, maybe $200, maybe more as your income grows. The exact number matters less than the habit, because something interesting begins to happen. Your money starts working. Then the money your money earns starts working too. Then the money earned by that money starts working. It's like planting a tree. The first year, growth is hard to notice. The second year isn't much different. But decades later, you're standing beneath something huge. This process has a name, compound growth, and it's responsible for creating more millionaires than almost any financial strategy in history. But here's where psychology gets involved. Human beings are terrible at understanding exponential growth. We're wired to think in straight lines. If I save $100 this month, I expect to have about $100 more. If I save $1,000, I expect $1,000 more. Our brains struggle to imagine growth that accelerates over time. That's why many people underestimate what small investments can become. And because they underestimate it, they never start. Think about a chessboard. Place 1 grain of rice on the first square. Double it on every square afterward. 2 grains, 4 grains, 8 grains, 16 grains. At first, the numbers seem tiny, but by the end, the amount becomes almost impossible to comprehend. The early stages don't look impressive. The later stages look unbelievable. Investing follows the same pattern. The beginning feels slow. The ending feels magical. But the magic isn't happening at the end. It's happening the entire time. Most people simply don't notice it until much later. Now let's talk about a financial mistake that quietly destroys millions of futures: lifestyle inflation. This happens when income rises and spending rises right along with it. You get a raise, you upgrade your phone, you buy a nicer car, you move into a bigger apartment. Nothing seems wrong individually, but collectively they prevent wealth from forming. Imagine trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is open. You keep pouring water in, but it never fills. Many people spend decades doing exactly that with money. They earn more, spend more, earn more, spend more, and wonder why their net worth barely changes. Wealth isn't created by how much enters your life. It's created by how much stays and grows. This is why two people with identical incomes can end up in completely different places. One retires comfortably, the other struggles financially. The difference isn't income, it's behavior. And behavior is where millionaires are often made. Imagine two friends, Alex and Ben. Both earn the same salary. Both start working at the same age. Both receive similar raises. Alex spends most of what he earns. Ben automatically invests part of every paycheck. Nothing dramatic happens for years. In fact, Alex appears richer. He drives nicer cars, takes more expensive vacations, buys more things. But beneath the surface, something invisible is happening. Ben is building ownership. His investments slowly accumulate. They generate returns. Those returns generate more returns, year after year, decade after decade. By retirement age, the difference becomes massive. Not because Ben was a genius, not because he got lucky, but because he consistently gave his money time to grow. Time is the secret ingredient nobody can buy later. You can always earn more money. You cannot create more years. And that's why starting early matters so much. Let's look at something surprising. Many people ask, what's the best investment? But often that's the wrong question. A better question is, how long can I stay invested? Because time frequently matters more than finding the perfect investment. Imagine two investors. One spends years searching for the perfect opportunity. The other starts immediately with a simple, diversified investment strategy. The second investor often wins, not because they picked better investments, but because they gave compounding more time to work. This brings us to a powerful mindset shift. Millionaires don't usually think of investing as sacrificing money. They think of it as purchasing freedom. Every dollar invested today is a future employee working for them. One employee becomes 10, 10 become 100, 100 become thousands. Eventually, those financial employees generate enough income that work becomes optional. That's what retirement really is. It's not an age, it's a financial condition. It's the point where your assets work harder than you do. And that journey can begin with something as small as $100. Now here's the deeper lesson that rarely gets discussed. Wealth building is less about finance and more about identity. Most people focus on outcomes. I want $1 million. But successful investors focus on becoming the kind of person who consistently invests. This is a subtle but important difference, because goals have an end point. Identity lasts. Someone who sees themselves as an investor behaves differently. They save automatically. They think long-term. They resist impulsive spending. They understand that every financial decision is a vote for their future. And those small votes add up. Think about fitness. Nobody becomes healthy from a single workout. Nobody becomes unhealthy from a single dessert. The outcome comes from repeated actions. Wealth works the same way. One investment doesn't make you rich. One purchase doesn't make you poor. It's the pattern repeated thousands of times. The challenge is that the rewards are delayed, and humans naturally prefer immediate gratification. A new gadget today feels real. Retirement 30 years from now feels abstract. That's why wealth building is often a psychological battle.
You're constantly choosing between present pleasure and future freedom. The people who win aren't necessarily more disciplined. They simply create systems that make good decisions easier. Automatic investing, automatic savings, automatic contributions. They remove emotion from the process. Because emotions are wonderful for relationships, they're terrible for investing. Fear causes people to sell at the wrong time. Greed causes people to chase trends. Patience creates wealth. And patience becomes easier when you understand what's happening beneath the surface. Your investments aren't supposed to explode overnight. They're supposed to grow steadily for decades. That's the plan. And boring is often a feature, not a bug. In fact, many of the world's most successful investors built fortunes through consistency rather
and understanding how money actually grows. The next time you look at a small amount of money and think, that's not enough to matter, remember the snowball, remember the tree, remember the grain of rice. Great wealth often starts in ways that look completely insignificant. The people who become millionaires aren't always the ones who start with the most money. They're often the ones who start before everyone else. Because in the game of wealth building, the most powerful word isn't money, it's time. And the best time to start was years ago. The second best time is today.